Breaking news from around your world on this Friday, June 28, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Last-ditch talks to persuade Tehran not to exceed nuclear limits within days were on course for failure Friday, as Iranian officials said their demands had not been met, and Washington rebuffed European calls to ease sanctions to allow negotiations. Iranian officials met in Vienna with representatives of the countries that are still party to the nuclear deal: Britain, France, Germany, Russia, and China. A week after Washington called off airstrikes just minutes before impact, diplomats say Iran is on course within days to exceed the threshold of enriched uranium allowed under its nuclear deal with world powers, which Washington quit last year. Despite abandoning the deal, Washington has demanded European countries force Iran to continue complying with it. Iran says it cannot do so unless the Europeans provide it with some way to receive the deal's promised economic benefits. The Iranians repeated their demand that they be allowed to sell oil. Foreign Ministry spokesman Abbas Mousavi said the talks were a last chance for the remaining parties to show they are committed to the sanctions relief Iran was promised. President Donald Trump talked trade, military, and Iran with world leaders Friday, all with a smile and a joke or two during the first day of the two-day G-20 summit in Japan. Following a meeting on the sidelines of the summit in Osaka between Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, reporters asked Trump if he would issue the Russian leader a warning against meddling in U.S. elections. "Yes, of course I will," he said, before turning to Putin saying, "Don't meddle in the election." The comment, seemingly made in jest, came after the two held a bilateral meeting during which they discussed Iran, Syria, Venezuela, and Ukraine, while agreeing to improve relations as it was in each country's mutual interest and the interest of the world, according to the White House. Putin pointed out following their meeting that they had not seen one another since their first summit in Helsinki, Finland. Their time together in Osaka would be a great opportunity to follow up on that, he said. Earlier, Trump held a meeting with German Chancellor Angela Merkel. The White House said the two leaders discussed disarmament, the North Korean threat, and Iran. Trump also held a bilateral meeting with Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, before which Abe said sustainable growth of the world's economy wouldn't be possible without the cooperation of the U.S. and Japan. The White House said Trump and Abe also held a trilateral meeting with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, where they renewed their commitment to global security and infrastructure development. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said Thursday that the Democrat-led House reluctantly passed the Senate's bipartisan legislation to provide $4.6 billion to address a humanitarian crisis at the southern border. The House had approved a version that included tighter restrictions on the Trump administration's use of the money, but Pelosi said a showdown with the Senate risked delaying efforts to improve conditions for children detained at the border. The decision came after an image of a Salvadoran father and daughter who drowned crossing the Rio Grande increased pressure for finding a solution. Italian engineers on Friday blew up the looming remains of a motorway viaduct in the northern city of Genoa, whose collapse last August killed 43 people. The remains of the 1.2-kilometer elevated road that had connected the port city with southern France fell to the ground with a roar, sending up clouds of cement dust. The explosions centered on two pylons holding up the surviving spans of the viaduct as cannons shot water over the 20,000 cubic meters of steel and concrete to prevent the clouds of dust from engulfing the city. Genoa Mayor Marco Bucci said the controlled demolition had gone to plan. A section of the viaduct built in the 1960s with reinforced concrete and strengthened in the 1990s gave way August 14th, sending cars and trucks hurtling 50 meters to the ground. The collapse made access to Genoa's busy port more difficult and has also meant a lengthy detour for drivers heading to southern France. The new viaduct is due to be inaugurated by the middle of next year. Tesla says a fire in one of its cars in Shanghai was caused by the failure of a single battery module, and investigators found no defects in the car's systems. The electric car maker said Friday on its social media account that a joint team examined the battery, software, manufacturing information, and the vehicle history following the April 21st fire in an underground garage. It said it found no system defects and determined preliminarily that the fire was caused by the failure of a battery module in the front of the vehicle. Tesla said in May it was issuing a battery-related software update. In the U.S., federal authorities are investigating at least 3 Tesla fires, including one that killed the driver of a Model S last February near Fort Lauderdale. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is probing that Florida fire, while the National Transportation Safety Board is investigating Tesla car fires in West Hollywood and Mountain View, California. The Mountain View fire occurred after a fatal crash on a freeway. Tesla maintains its vehicles catch fire far less often than those powered by gasoline. Apple Chief Design Officer Johnny Ive plans to leave later this year to form his own design company, which will be called Love From. Apple said Ive, who was a close creative collaborator with Apple co-founder Steve Jobs and played a key role in developing the iPhone, will continue to collaborate with Apple at the new company, but analysts still said the departure was jarring. Ben Bajarin, an analyst with Creative Strategies, said, "It is the most significant departure of somebody who was a core part of the growth story under Jobs." The iPhone maker's shares fell by as much as 1.5% in aftermarket trading, enough to reduce the company's market capitalization by $9 billion. NASA said by 2026 it will launch a drone-like dual quadcopter dubbed Dragonfly on a journey to Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Titan is the only known world besides Earth with standing rivers, lakes, and seas on its surface within our solar system. The expedition, the 4th to be funded under New Frontiers, which supports select planetary exploration projects with a price tag of less than $850 million, will use Titan's dense atmosphere to its full advantage, sending the agile spacecraft flying across dozens of locations upon its arrival in 2034. In addition to exploring diverse locales, Dragonfly will simultaneously strive to identify large organic molecules conducive to creating the conditions necessary for life. NASA said it's primarily interested in Titan because of its similarities to our own planet. The first in-depth exploration of Titan occurred in 2005 when NASA's Cassini orbiter mapped that moon's surface and deposited a probe. That spacecraft touched down on Titan on a plane that resembled a dry lake bed, achieving the first ever landing on a planetary body in the outer solar system. The first solar eclipse since 2017 will occur next week and will be visible in parts of South America. Experts said the eclipse will be seen along a 6,000-mile swath Tuesday. When it aligns with the sun, the moon will cast a dark shadow over parts of Chile and Argentina. During the event, those locations will be shaded from the sun for several minutes. Observers will be able to see next week's eclipse in a narrow zone from Chile to central Argentina. Neighboring South American countries will see a partial eclipse. The Great South American Eclipse will be the only total eclipse of 2019 and the first since the Great American Eclipse of August 2017. There will be an annular eclipse, December 26th, visible in many Mideast nations. Tuesdays will be the final total eclipse until December 2020, which will be a near repeat, as Chile and Argentina will again be the primary locations under its path. The next total solar eclipse in the United States will occur April 8th, 2024, and will be visible from Texas to New England. And that's your update for this Friday, June 28th, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend.